This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, friends. Welcome to Nonfiction Research Strategies and Organization. My name is Jendayi Harris of Next Level Therapy, and we're really going to speak today about how to get your research done. And I have lots and lots of ideas for you. Now, you'll see behind me, you're joining me in the beautiful Times Square, New York. Look at that. It is so bright. It's actually nighttime, but when you go outside, it looks like daytime. I have shaded windows here at the Renaissance Marriott in New York. So with all ado, let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and turn the video off because my camera is weird and show you the presentation. So you should be able to see my screen. And in my screen, I'm just going to make it bigger because we're going to hop around a lot. You're going to want a notebook, and you're going to want to be able to look at the slides, which are also on the handout that you can view. So let me just make sure we're good to go here. All right, you should be able to see my screen. And we're off. Okay, so nonfiction research strategies and organization. This is a topic that is near to my heart only because we have to know if our writing requires research or not. Now, there's lots and lots of benefits to getting research done. The first major benefit is credibility. If you want to be a credible author, you're going to need others to back up your data. Now, here's what's also true is that the best authorities in some spaces, for example, Louise Hay, she is kind of a new age author, but she writes content that just tells you how it is, and there's no research in it. It has some research, from her discoveries, but put in her own language. But she's an authority in that mental health and healing space because she doesn't use any research, okay? And then you always have our good old-fashioned Bible. The Bible is an authority. It is its own research source. And it is because it's an authority, there is no citation, so to speak, except for itself. So the New Testament is 85% of the Old Testament, for example. So it's not as though you can't write a book without research. The point is books that go far and wide. For example, I'm going to talk about a book called The Obesity Code. For my book, I'll share with you in a moment, I've had to use this book for its incredible research. There's another book called The Hormone Code. So some of the research that I've been doing is because of these types of authors that have done extensive research. So what happens is if I quote as somebody who's done the research, then I'm more credible. And this is for you too. So some of our writing requires research, and that is going to increase your credibility. It also increases your accuracy of what you are talking about. So if you're not sure what to recommend, especially for your nonfiction book, when you do the research and research other authors, you're supporting that accuracy that you're right and your recommendations are right and their recommendations are valid. And all of this increases your readership. So for example, the books I mentioned, The Obesity Code, The Hormone Code, these books became bestsellers because of the extensive research that is in them. So nonfiction books that go far and wide all have that thing in common, which is research. Some of them don't, such as the Bible, which is its own authority, as well as other books that I mentioned, like Louise Hay's book that she has, and there's other authors too that simply write a book and it's what it is, okay? So that doesn't mean you have to have research, but for those of you watching this, I assume you want research, and really ask yourself, does your writing require research? Are you making recommendations that are just your own hunches that you need to back up, or do you need to kind of see what's going on so you can make the right recommendations? So my story, oops, it skipped around. My story is this. Research was very, very hard for me. And it always has been because nobody ever taught me how to research, which is interesting, right? You go to school, I even went to grad school and I did a lot of research. I did tons of research and put together lots of papers, but I never knew really how to do it. I just did it and kind of created some weird process somehow and got through it, but it was always with great anxiety. My book has been extreme great anxiety. So here's 3 of my books that are coming out this year, finally. And one thing that you see there is the Chubby Church book. Now, this is a health type of book. It's an emotional health, spiritual health, and a physical health type of book. So the body stewardship chapters, for example, required extensive research. And I had anxiety for years, which is why it took so long for me to get to this place. And I don't want that to be your case. I want you to have a format and a way to do this, because honestly, I could not find it anywhere. So I had to put some stuff together for myself so that the research process and how-tos are a lot easier. And I hope you find that to be true for you. So first thing is preparing to research. And you prepare with the type of book that you want to do. Now, there's a big difference between a book that's going to be written to your peers. For example, if you're an LPC like me, or a licensed professional counselor like I am, or if you're a doctor, or if you are in a profession of some kind, that you're talking in your book to peers, your research is going to look different than if you're talking to the everyday man or woman, okay, the everyday adult. So the adult doesn't need a lot of research. Depending on who they are, there are thinker types that are going to, research is going to appeal to your reader, but the everyday man or woman, they just like, as one editor said, they just like a research, and then they like it, like a research wrapped around a story, right? Like they like to be drawn in and to understand things and then have a little research. But some of your readers love data and they like more research, okay? You can't necessarily appeal to everybody. It's just what you got is calling for you and what you need to do for your book. A children's book, for example, may not need any research at all because of the way it's just story written, okay? And then academia is going to need a different level of research, a different style, a higher quality of research. So it's just kind of figuring out who is your reader and what kind of book are you writing. So think about that. Who is your reader? And what type of book are you writing? And what kind of research is going to appeal to that reader? And what kind of language? So if you're speaking to a man or woman, you're going to use a conversational language and kind of give them research nuggets that are very interesting, but wrapped inside of a story or a how-to protocol or what to do and what they need to know. So there's all kinds of research. So let's look at the type of research that we can do. Now, there's lots of ways to do research. There's interviews that you can do with experts or with just everyday people that meet your storyline. So, for example, the book about moms, I interviewed, that book is really for adult children. It's for adult parents, it's for parents or moms of adult children, to be more specific, and specifically parents who have had mothers who have had a tough relationship with their adult child. So I've interviewed the mother side, I've interviewed adult daughters, let's say, for this book and content in order to get the most rich and meaty stories to use. And so journalists do this. They look for interviews to have to really pull out the story and data. And in a nonfiction book, this is just as good because that story is going to help you connect the points of what you're saying. Stories draw in so nicely, and to open up in a story or bring a story to illustrate your research point is going to support you. Another way to do it is videos. Now, what I mean by videos is there's YouTubes, and we're going to search those, and I'll show you how to find stuff on there on YouTube, but also your documentaries. Like, for example, in Chubby Church book, I had to watch documentaries. So there's a great one called What the Health, if you haven't seen it. Another great one with Clinton in it, Bill Clinton, President Bill Clinton, Merrick's President Bill Clinton. That's called Fed Up, and it talks about childhood obesity. So the What the Health talks about kind of the meat industry and kind of what's happening in the health and wellness space. So it's really good to watch. But those are ways that you can gather some data. You don't have to read everything. You can actually just do it via documentaries and videos and YouTubes. Books is another way, and I kind of love books because it's old school, you know. You just pick up a book and quote the book, and the author may have done the research, but at least you have that one-stop shop of all the research the author already did on that single subject of interest. For example, obesity, in my case, looking at how what's going on with obesity and how is that being affected, and then reading books that are around that topic, or hormones or sexual abuse or whatever it is, finding books and content that you can use right from your library at home. or on Amazon. Sometimes you don't even have to buy the book to get good stuff. All right. Next is articles online. So there's tons of web articles out there. Some are more quality than others. I try to look for quality quotate, like where what I mean by quality is that they have citations. So looking for articles that validate research or summarize research. And the best is when you can go to the link of the research or find the research yourself directly, which nowadays in the way we have our freedom of searching, you can do that pretty easily. And another type of research is scholarly journal articles. So again, peer-to-peer is where you'll use more scholarly journal articles or books type of references, but there's periodicals, there's newspapers, there's magazines, there's all kinds of research and tools that you can use to find things. So that's just an overview, but we'll go deeper. The next thing you need to do is figure out what research you need, okay? So figure out what research you need. Well, how do you know what research you even need to find? I think some ways is you can just simply brainstorm. Just like Shelley talks about an Author Audience Academy, you can find this, basically Author Audience Academy is that training site for authors, and you can go onto there and look at how she goes about writing a book. And when you look at writing a book, it's the same thing as the research. And when you do your brainstorm for the book or simply brainstorming research itself per chapter and what those needs could be. So you would simply type out, let's say you're studying, let's say premature babies. Okay, why are babies born premature? So research always starts with a question. And you want to ask yourself, what's going on with, New York? Why is it, how much energy does it actually use to light up all this, this street like it is in Times Square today? So you would ask yourself whatever the question is, and you brainstorm, well, let's see how much electricity that New York uses. Or in the case of the premature baby, why are moms, do obese moms create obesity, premature babies? Is it a health concern? Is it a mindset concern? These are the types of questions that you ask when you go about researching, and you simply brainstorm these types of questions and things that you can research. Okay, is it because of nutritional deficiency that babies are premature? In the case of the New York example with the lights, how much is this costing us? Is this lighting up Times Square costing us international debt? Like, is New York broke? Does New York have funds to even fund this? What would happen if it all, blacked out? When did it last black out in Times Square? So these are questions, and these questions are what you would consider a brainstorm. You can also interview people and find out what they would want to know about these topics that you have. So if you are doing a topic of prayer, for example, you can ask people, well, what do you want to know about prayer? Maybe people want to know how many people call into prayer lines for prayer, and how many prayer lines exist, or how many requests do they get for finances or health or something like that. So you can see where it's easy as you think about brainstorming what to do. Shelley also recommends mind mapping. If you watch Author Audience Academy, you will see a section on mind mapping around, putting your book fundamentals together. And the same thing with research. You can simply mind map by placing a circle in the middle, what is it, Times Square lighting, and then doing a lines that would ask questions about that exact thing in the middle. Okay, so really easy. It's already on there, so I'm not going to go through that in detail. And then the next one is free write. So this is what I did. Now, it's not always the best idea. It worked well for me, and I do recommend it because it does help you figure out what you need, but you start free writing. So for example, I'm writing about habits of body stewardship, like how to habitize body stewardship. And one of the things I was writing on was hormones. But as I free wrote, I realized I did not have enough information. My free writing was like a half a paragraph, right? So I don't have enough content. So I need to figure out, okay, well, what hormones do people need to watch around their weight issues and their mental issues and things like that? So first you're writing it, and then you see where your limitations are, and then you can simply fill in the blanks with the right questions that you need of finding out the hormones, in this case, the hormones that matter for what you're talking about, Or the prayer, if we use the prayer example, as you write, you'll see the content that's limited. For example, how to pray, or the right strategies for prayer, or scriptures around prayer. You'll see what's needed for you to research, and you write, you keep a running list of these items. Okay, the next is you research as you go. So for one chapter in my book, I researched as I went along. So for example, as I was writing about hormones, and I did a mix of things, but as I was writing about cortisol, for example, the stress hormone, I would do research online to validate what I was thinking and saying to help me finish that chapter. Okay, so, or when I was writing about malnourishment and obese, I was like, okay, I need to find some data to back up what I'm saying, because I'm thinking obesity is as a result of malnourishment. And then I find data that proves that's correct, and all the nutrients and vitamins that most people who are obese are missing, that are very clear correlations. So you find this data as you go along, and you just simply keep track of it in the ways I'm going to show you in this webinar. And hang tight, we are going to show you, I'm going to show you a bit more visuals as we keep going. Okay, so finding the research, figuring out what you need is the first part, right? Figure out what you need. And you may not know until you free write, which is okay. Then you want to find the research that you need. And there's so many ways to find the research, so many, but there's some hidden gems I want to make sure you know about. So let me share my screen with you, and I'm going to go into, not my email, but I'm going to go into different ideas for you to research. Now, one of the best ones is going to be your standard search engine, your standard Google. Okay, so if you're researching, causes for premature babies, you just type that in, and then you're going to see what kind of pops up. So you can put the word research to make it a little bit more specific. Okay, so prematurity research, there you go. So that's a good article to look at, possibly. You read that. It's from March of Dimes. And, you can get some good quality stuff there, especially from these types of organizations that pretty much do this for a living. They stay and specialize there. So it's fascinating what you can find just from a simple Google search. Another thing you can do is go to, now Google has a specialized research page, and you may not have known that. It's really for academics, but it's for anyone, but it's called ai.google/research publications. So if you really want to research in Google, there is a place for this that brings up all kinds of research areas, and you can search by topic. So if I put in premature babies, okay, or, well, this is not the best here. Okay, well, nonetheless, for yours, you may have better topics that may come up a little bit easier, but typically you'll find all kinds of ideas here that aren't as bad. So if you pop in certain research names or types of information, you may be able to find some more. This is more scientific oriented, it looks like, but again, it just depends. Another thing you can do is go to write in Word. Let me show you how to do research in Word. So if I open up a Word document and I want to do research, you can click on references. So right at the top of Word, you'll see the word references. And it has this thing called researcher. So let's say I want to find articles. I go into research and I look up premature babies, click enter, and it's going to bring up topics all from across the internet that are going to be around what I'm researching. And what's even more handy is I can hit this plus sign. So watch my screen. I'm on the right hand side, the research, hit the plus sign. And what happens is it goes into the bibliography, making your life easier. Okay, and I'll show you how to work this more in a moment. But you can see there it's already quoted, and it's also a part of my research. So it has all kinds of research from all within my Word documents that that are kept. Okay, so you can find sources, type in anything, and you'll see that you'll get a whole list of ideas that can work. And it also splits it up between books and journals and websites if you wanted some more specificity. We can specificity, I don't know how to say that exactly, and click all, and then that's going to be all the sources, and you can look up a variety here. So really helpful way to find it. Another way, especially for books and data information, such as books, let me just go to here. We're going to go to Amazon. Amazon is a great tool, as you know, and you can find kind of what's out there in prayer. This is a great step when you're writing any book, is to see what's out there. But you can see their books and you can open it and see what topics may be of interest for your research. And a lot of times you'll be able to view it for free. Okay, so you'll be able to see if there's anything that you can quote right in here for free. Okay, or a quote from that author if you see a best-selling book on the topic, so that your book, again, has the support it needs. Other tools for research, let's keep going, we're doing great. This is called OneNote. So OneNote is another Office tool, and you can do research in here. I love it because of the way you can organize. But if you had references for prayer, it works the same as Word. So I can go ahead to review and do research. So you see here I'm in review, research, click there, and it pops up on the right. Oopsie, pops up on the right, and I can type in whatever it is I want to find. Okay, and it brings up a whole laundry list of ideas similar to that of Word that is available for you to use. Another place you can research, I know there's so many, aren't there? And who knew research could be so much fun, but it can be, is YouTube's. So YouTube is a top search engine, and people look at YouTube maybe just for watching videos, but it's actually the pretty much top search engine out there, especially for younger folks. And people are going to this for all kinds of things. So in YouTube, you can type in your topic, and again, I'm using prayer, and get some ideas. And these YouTubes can be cited appropriately inside of your research, your book, and your document, in your nonfiction book. So you can find some good ideas here on what other people are saying, and boom, you have some research from a credible source. You look for like Cindy Trimp, she's a very, very credible source, and you can use her quote or what she's saying about prayer in order to support what you're saying about it. Okay. All right, let's keep going with sources. You are hopefully doing great in all this awesome insight, because I didn't know what to do or where to go, and I felt all over the place, and research is all over the place, which we'll talk about. Another source is documentaries. Now, that's going back to good old-fashioned Amazon. Can you believe how popular Amazon is? And another thing you can find is documentaries. Okay, so in Prime, if you use Prime or Netflix or whatever it is that you use, you can find documentaries that may be helpful. Like maybe we go for, Finger of God. See if that's open. Or Father of Lights. That's another great kind of movie about God stuff. But you can find this and watch it or rent it, and that is a part of your, I should watch that later. This is a part of your research of just finding documentaries. Now, I studied sugar, so look, I can put sugar documentary and see what pops up. And I get all of these great resources here to consider. And I look for the most credible ones, the ones with maybe the most reviews, or looks more interesting to me, or it's from a credible source, like this one with Bill Clinton in it and Katie Couric. Like that kind of screams professional, right? Lots of reviews. So I would watch something like this, and then you have notes that you would take in the sources I'm going to share with you in a moment of where to take notes. So all of this to say is there's plenty of places to get your research. There's also research sites. So I'm going to share with you a couple more tools, and then we'll get back into some more data here. But again, finding documentaries is another great way to do your research. I mean, you can just watch your research if you don't love to read your research. Okay, so going back to search tools, there are tons of tools for searching. Some of them are paid, some of them are free, but as far as where to find research, you can also look at, you know, this is in the handout, as you can see several places for finding research, and you see all these listings. So Library of Congress, the World Catalog, Google Books, Open Library, there's just tons of them. And some of them are free and some of them are not. So it's just finding out which ones work for you based on the type of research that you need to do. And again, this is not, doesn't have to be hard. This is a really good one. So like LexisNexis site. This is LexisNexis, but it has, you know, some of these are paid where you have to actually, you know, have a membership, but others are free and completely free. Okay, so you can find all kinds of research on, you know, on the net, of course, and in these databases. Another really cool one is research assistance. So there's groups like Write by Night. Let me put the website up here in case you wanted to get a research assistant, where you can pay people to, I think it's com, but it could be org. Nope, it's org. Okay, it's not coming up right. It's Write by Night. And you can pay people to research for you as well. So I've got lots of research done through Fiverr and ask them to research topics. The goal is to just be really specific on the topic. Okay, so these people are awesome. And they do author services, so you can hire them for research. It doesn't say here, but you can, because I've done that before. So you just request services. It's a little pricey, but they do good work for you, and they have lots of services for writers as well. And then finally, Fiverr.com and other sources like it, like Upwork, you can find people to do your research for you, which is wonderful, right? So I can type in research here, and a lot of times it's market research, but if you have specific research, you see all these people, they will help you find the research you need. And you can say, you know, I need 10 articles about prayer. I need 10 articles about premature babies. I need 10 articles about, you know, male hormones, whatever it is for your nonfiction book. This is one way you can get some of those resources cited. Now, let's continue to move forward. So I gave you lots of data on finding research and where to go. And there's just, it's basically everything is research. Every research is also everywhere. So it's just up to you to kind of find your way and what works for you. And when I'm doing a topic, I'll go everywhere and then narrow it down from there. So the next thing you need to do here is you need to look for the notes, like how do you do research notes? And there's three main ways to do this, all right? So we have, first is a direct quote. So from your research, if you have if it's line by line exactly how it's written that you find or how it's said, it needs to be in direct quotes. And when you jot this down in your notes, you need to make sure you put quotes clearly around it so you don't have plagiarism issues around what you find, okay? The next thing you may need to do is have a summary. So if something, for example, you read some data on prayer and you get a direct quote from Billy Graham on prayer, you're going to put direct quotes, Billy Graham, on your note sheet or your index cards, whatever you choose to use, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But if you have something, if you read something from Billy Graham and you kind of want to summarize what was said, like basically Billy Graham thinks it's, you know, good to pray, okay? You put that down in your summary and you call it a summary. So there's not direct quotes. You put it in your in kind of a summary of everything you looked at around Billy Graham and prayer. Then you go to Paraphrase, and Paraphrase is about you're putting it in your own language, and you have to make sure that's clear in your in how you note it. So just being careful with notes and on the research that you take from, and making sure there's a distinction between direct quotes, using quotations, summary, and paraphrasing, and knowing what's what, okay? Because you don't want issues of plagiarism. And you can use other tools like Grammarly and Readable and other tools to check for that kind of thing. Organize your research. So how do you go about, let's do our next segment, and it's on organizing your research. So the first thing you want to do is organize your sources. So as far as organizing sources, there's some amazing tools out there. You may have heard of, you know about Word, but Scrivener is a wonderful tool. There's others like Zotero, and Zotero is free, so I'm going to show you that. OneNote is another way to organize sources. I'll show you how that works. And Browser Favorites is a wonderful way to organize sources. So let's go ahead and take a look on how these work. So first is, let's go to this Zotero, and there's others like it as well. So Zotero is a free source tool. And when you get in here, basically it asks you, let's hope I log in quickly. All right, it's going to have inside of here different sources that you can use. And you just click the plus, you create an account, and you make an item. So let's say it's a book. I'm going to continue. And I type in the title. Okay. And then you can summarize it if you want. You can put in all the other data that's listed in here. And what it's going to do is it's going to add this as a source for you. Now there is a way, some organizations that do this will actually allow you to search for, search for it easier than this particular tool. But this tool is free. So Zotero is free, and it keeps a list of all of your references, so they're in one place, and you can tell what it is based on the little icon. So this is a book, this is a note, and these are, various ways that you can track your research. The key for me around research was certainly organization. So I don't know if that's your case, but this is one way to find it. Okay, so Zotero is the tool there. Now, there's many others. You can simply do a Google search, and I've searched them all actually, and you can put in research tools like Zotero, and you'll find some other alternatives like EndNote. This one, the EndNote and Mendeley, they are paid tools, so you can get a free version, but most of those are paid. So research logging tools is what you would type in, and you'll find all kinds of ideas if that's your choice. Some of them do the research as well as help you take notes, as well as they cite the source for you, which is awesome. Okay, next, let's look at our keeping notes within other tools. I'm going to go to Scrivener. So Scrivener is a wonderful research tool. I don't prefer it per se because it feels too scattered for me still. I leave things more condensed, but some people really like it. And so if you prefer index cards for keeping your notes, it's a real handy one as well. And so within the tool of Scrivener, there you have, in every new manuscript you open, there's this little piece called research that you can see. And you can actually import documents. So let's say I found this one I was researching, like kind of trauma NOBs. So I put file, you can put in, actually, you can import. So I'm going to click import, and then you can click file. And anything you find on the net that you save, you can actually just pop in here. So if this was research, you can import anything you want, and now it's going to be under your research. You can also have a place for notes of all your notes where they go. And again, you have all these documents that you can have in one place in here. So, and you can see mine are highlighted from PDF, and I'll show you that. doesn't belong there. All right, so that's one idea. You can also notice how I have index cards here. So within Scrivener, you're able to create index cards, and that's actually not hard to do. And when you come in here, you'll see this corkboard. You can just pick it right from here and create your research notes. Okay, very, very easy to use. It's truly a gift using Scrivener if it works for you. I used it in the very, very beginning of my writing journey, but I don't use it now. I may use it in the future, you never know. But to create any index cards of your research, you want to start with the source. The source name should be at the top. And ideally, you have like an author name and the title of the document if it's not the source name. And there's lots of ways that you can reference your index cards, but sometimes you have so much research, you may need a source code or number instead, okay? All right, so how did I get a new index card? I just hit this plus at the very bottom of the screen, and you can have as many as you want. And then what's great is you can move them around too. So if you see like, oh, well, this research isn't flowing right, you can work them around, and you can also make them a summary and use other formats in Scrivener. So really, really helpful tool. All right, next tool, let's look at OneNote. Actually, let's look at Word first. So I'm going to go to Word. Now, what's so cool about Word, I'm going to go to a chapter so you can actually see this in action. I don't know if it's in here. Okay, so inside of Word, you can put references into a wonderful section, which is right up top. So when you go to references, you can manage sources, and look at all these sources for this chapter. So I have this is a source. There's several sources that are considered chapter 10. So what I'm going to do here is I want to cite sources. So I can insert to add a source. Let me do that first. To add a source, you just click on Manage Sources, and then you click on New. And it's going to ask you, what is it? So if it's a magazine or a book or an article or a video or something, you can plot, if it's film, right, you can plot all of that in, and it's going to automatically put it into the right format style. So for example, if I have a book, I'll put again, author Sarah Gottfried. I've spelled that wrong. Make sure you have it spelled correctly. Okay, and then you put in the title of the book, the publication date, the city it was published in, and the publisher. Okay, and click OK. And that's it. And now it's going to have a source for you to use. And when you're writing, let's say this was something I wanted to add right here. Let's put it right here. Okay, so I see my cursor. I'm going to go ahead and put in there that citation. So insert citation under references in Word, insert citation, and voila. Look at that. You see that? And then when I go to write a bibliography, I can pop it in right here. Boom. How easy was that? Word is phenomenal when it comes to tracking references. It's actually probably my favorite tool for doing so. So you will be able to do all of that should you decide to, and keep it really easy for yourself simply by using Word. All right, next. And honestly, I haven't checked Google Docs, if you're a Google user, if this works there, but I can, and maybe you should, right, if that's for you and more of interest for you. Okay, going back to the presentation, another one, so we talked about Zoro, and there's many other tools like Zotero out there. Word, we talked about Scrivener, we talked about OneNote, we didn't talk about what we will, and then browser favorites. Okay, so let's go to OneNote and then let's go to the browser. So in OneNote, you can do the same thing around references. I told you about searching for those, right? But one thing that's really cool on OneNote is this. So look at this. It's an amazing looking clip. And in OneNote, you can actually clip from other places. So these are clipped articles from the web. And what's great about them is they kind of organize themselves based on just the clip. So how did I find this? How did I get these clips? You see how it says click from, so I have all my research here. Well, inside of the right browser tool, so you can do this in Edge, in whatever this one is called, Firefox. You can do it in Chrome, I believe, too. You would look for the extension. You see how I have, look at the top right, you see this purple notebook? This is for OneNote, and I don't know if you have OneNote. If you have Office, you probably have OneNote. If you have Office 365, you probably have OneNote. To find out if you have it, you can search your computer, and I'm on a PC, but search in the search area for OneNote on the computer system, and you'll see if you have OneNote. It's ideal to use the desktop version, the desktop app, versus the OneNote other app, but either one is fine and going to give you what you need. The reason is because the desktop version syncs well with all of Outlook, and it also syncs incredibly well with your browser and on your cell phone. So everywhere you'll be able to get access to your research. All right, so let's go to OneNote Clipper. And one thing that's so cool about this, and I got to sign in, put all my stuff in so you can see it. Okay, is that I'm having some issues for mine today. So where I can't show you exactly, or let me see, I'll sign into this one. Okay, so you can get this from Microsoft. Okay, so you notice what happened. So I'm all signed in now, and I clicked on the clipper of OneNote. And how to get this extension in here is you would go to your browser and you would look at, options, and you would add on, click search and add for, OneNote here. Or you can go to OneNote and download the clipper in there. If you need more help on that, I'm sure there's a video you can research and find out. Okay, for right now, we're going to use the clipper tool. So I'm clicking OneNote. I have the tool installed within my browser here. And you can click on the full page. So all I have to do is note what I'm finding. Okay, so research tools. And it's going to collect this exact page as it is in its entirety. And I click clip on. You see how you can click clip, not clip on, but clip. In addition, you can click on a specific, like if I find a really good piece of data. So let's say I go to Amazon, I find a great book or a documentary, just for ease. So I find this great sugar film and I want to snap it, or actually let's go to a book so that you can see how this works and how you would clip from other books. All right, I'm in, okay, I want to quote this author. I'm going to find some juicy stuff. And I'm going to click on the clipper and clip on just a little piece, just a region. All right, and then look at what it did. So it tells me where I got it. It has the website, so I can go back later if I need to. And then it has what I want to quote. And I can make a note here, quote this author. Okay, wow, isn't that great? Clip, and it's now inside of my OneNote. If I search here for today, actually, you would want to put in today's date exactly. Today is February 14th. All right, so here it is, ready to go for me to look at a later time. Isn't that great? So OneNote is an amazing tool for citing and keeping your research. You can also just use one page for this as well. Wow, there's so much to learn in research. You never thought it was all possible, huh? But isn't it cool how you can get organized there? Another one is the browser favorites. So organizing your sources on OneNote, I just showed you, browser favorites is wonderful for lots of internet searching. So let's say you went to the internet, you love this particular site. So let's say we find, prayer research article. All right, and NCBI is, I tried to type it in earlier, but it's a really good research tool. I just love it. It's free. Most of the data is free or in abstracts. So inside of here, we find some proven stuff, which I may like to use. You can become a member here as well. But I'm going to click on my browser bookmark. So this works on any browser. You just go to bookmarks and bookmark this page. But you may want to get even more specific and organized by going to really managing your bookmark. So if I click on bookmarks, I can go to edit this bookmark and put it into a space that works better. So choose, and then I can put it in the book that I'm working on. So let's say I'm working on Chubby Church Research and pop it in there. You can create new folders inside. This is Firefox. You can do this in all browsers, pretty much work this way. And what I really like about Firefox is it's available, the same sources are available everywhere. The same bookmarks are available on all the browsers I use. So I love it, and you can stay organized with it and keep stuff where it belongs. And I organize it based on the book I'm working on or account if it's work stuff. So for example, my accounts, you can see there are all the bookmarks that will go into this one area. So in this particular case, I have it in the folder. That makes sense. So you can organize this just like you would inside of your My Documents. Wow. All right, next up. So we talked about organizing sources. Now sources, again, one of my favorites is Word for doing that. And I showed you the reference tool. But sources, again, are all over the place. And we need to just keep honing them in. If we don't, they can get cumbersome and we won't quote right. The next area we're going to talk about is organizing your sources for reading and reviewing. Now, when you actually need to read and review, how do you do that? Okay, so one of the ways we can do it is through the chapters folder. Here's how this works. And I found this method kind of late, but it was very helpful. So let's say you get an article. Okay, so I'm going here. I really like this article. I'm going to make it printer friendly, and I'm going to print it. I'm printing it to PDF. So I'm clicking print, and you can save it directly as a PDF. So I'm using the Microsoft Print to PDF. Click OK. And now it's going to come up to save it, and I can be specific. So you want to be specific, like benefits of prayer scientific. Okay, but I have to put this somewhere that is going to make some sense. So I'm going to my documents, I'm going to go to my book, and then I'm going to click on research in the chapter. So what I mean by chapter storage is you actually create a folder, and I put a dot so it brings up to the front, and kind of the chapter that it would matter in. In this case, it would be chapter 12. So I'll open that research and pop it in here. So now when I go to review my sources, watch this. Oh yeah, this is super fun for some of us. Okay, chapter 12, benefits of prayer scientific. When you review your PDF, now that you have it from the web to a PDF, you just kind of read it and you highlight. I'm going to click here in the PDF reader, Adobe, and kind of highlight what you would want to point out here. So you do your reading, you can highlight it right on the screen and find out. So there was a trial, they were all computed, they were statistically significant effects favoring distant healing, 9 showed, blah, 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 blah. All right, so maybe I take this information and use it and summarize it. Okay, you can also make a comment or a note right inside of the document. So let's say you say use in chapter 12, and you can, quote, maybe you have a direct quote, maybe you summarize, prayer works, and here's the data to prove it. You don't really type in all caps. You don't do that, especially not on email. But nonetheless, I put my notes right in here and you can see it. Okay, let's look at other ways. This is the chapter research, and that just depends on how much research you have. But when you go to do the bibliography, you have it here, and it's easier to quote, put that into your reference in Word or wherever, and voila. Okay, you have a very simplified bibliography process as a result. Beautiful, huh? Beautiful. All right, next, let's go to other sources. Index cards are great. Now, there's a wonderful YouTube. I'll put it into the reference by Ryan Holiday. Let me just show it to you so you have that too. I hope you're enjoying this workshop. I know research isn't always the sexiest topic, but nonetheless, you have what you need. All right, so I'm going to look up Ryan Holiday research book writing. And he has a wonderful YouTube. It's right here. And Ryan Holiday wrote several books.
I'm the author of Ego is the Enemy, which is my 4th book.
And in it, he summarizes. I've gotten
all the way through. Then I'm combining it all into one document. It took 2 or 3 days, right, of writing the draft. And I had just my...
So this is a great one. So I would highly recommend it. And it's looking at how he goes about research and what he does. And I don't see a clip here, but he has, here it is. It's, these are all his index cards. So he uses index cards throughout a course of a year to do all his research. As you know, just as I mentioned, we went through several ways that you can find research. Well, what he does is recommends you put it all on index cards. And this is from Robert Greene, another successful researcher and author. And there's many, many, many successful researchers and authors that do this method. I mean, think about Dr. Carolyn Leaf. If you read in her book, she talks about the brain. She has a great health book, Think and Grow Smart. She has other books like Who Switched Off My Brain. She's a researcher. So she puts it all into these types of methods that you just have to find the one that works for you, okay? But he recommends you do index cards, and everything is on an index card that would go into a chapter. And the little tabs you see here are chapters of where those notes make sense. So this is a great tool for learning how to research, and a wonderful video, and I'll make sure it's in your follow-up documentation. Okay, next is your printed reader review. So sometimes people will, instead of putting it electronically, if you love to research but you want to read, like you want hard data and you want to use some bedtime reading, you can actually make a bin of read and unread of their printed stuff. So instead of the PDF, you would print out, save it to PDF. So you can save any article, and I'll show you that again, but you can take any article online. All right, find the article. I'm just going to go to another one. And whatever the site is, you can click on print and save that article, and then you would print it out. All right, well, sometimes you can click this simple. So there's something called the simple printout. Let me move. I can't move this thing right now. There it is. Simplify. Sometimes it takes too much data off, like the author's name. So just make sure you have the author's name so it's easier for you for the source. And then you have all the data you need right up top for your citing. Okay, so you have a full article, and then you would just print. Like I don't need that last page. So I'm just going to click print, but I'm going to print just, pages 1 and to 5. Okay, print it, click OK. Your article, put it where it belongs as far as on your system. And now you would actually print it out as well. So you formatted it, great. Print, and then you would print it and keep a bin of all the things handy that you are not read. So, and I can't print actually. I wonder if it's printing at my home computer. I'm in New York, but yeah, it's offline. Okay, there you go. So it's kind of neat how you can make a printed file as well, but you just want to be really clear on bins that you've read and you didn't read, because it's very confusing when you put all this stuff together. I use a lot of magazines as well as printed articles and books, right? So that's all hands-on printed, and I have piles next to my desk. I should show you a picture of all the book stacks for different chapters that I am working on. So that is one way to do it, is just one pile is read, one pile is unread, so that I know what I've started with and what I need to finish with, okay? I showed you notation tools. There's also notation tools that are available on your cell phone that you can look up. Just look up notation tools in your Play. And then OneNote I showed you as well, as far as sources. And in this case, reading and reviewing would be just as simple as snipping and capturing, because I can just highlight this and read and review. And you can use the highlight feature in here by highlighting, and then you'll see a button pop up. This is interesting. And just highlight like in Word documents, okay? All right, so that's another way for your research to review it. And I know this is detailed, but again, I'm giving you what I felt I needed in how to do that. So organizing notes. Now, organizing notes, you can do it a few ways. Let's talk about it. And some of them I went over, so I'm just going to show you a bit more. So the first way is right inside of the chapter. And let me show you what I mean here. So inside of any chapter, this is a chapter I am working on currently. Let's do okay. All right, so if I find a chapter, uh-oh, something's going on with my computer. Sorry about that. Okay, if I find a chapter, if you want, you can do it this way. You can just find a chapter, all right, so wherever that is, and you can keep all of your notes and research right at the bottom. And as you need it, you can use it in the document. So, and as you're going about your research, whether it's printed sources or online sources, you copy and paste everything you'd be interested in right inside of the document. And then as you're writing, you have everything you need. This is how author Tab Edwards, one of my colleagues, does it. He's written 12 books and he has a lot of research in his books, and that's how he does it, is right from the chapter itself, so within the document. Another way to do it, and this is any document, whether it's on Google Docs or something else, or OneNote, its own source file is another way to put it. So you can actually create a new document per source. So let's say I wanted this document, like this premature birth article that I looked at. I'm going to click on references and look at my researcher and see my research, and it's right here. So I can go ahead and read this in reading view and then take notes. So let's say, you know, I'm reading this, I can read it and say, oh, okay, complications, you know, inside of here, complications exist when, you know, babies are nervous. Okay, whatever that is, and take all of your notes, and then you save it. So file, save as, and voila, you have, I like to put a dot so it brings it to the front, but you can say research, something consistent, or the name of your book. Or let's call this, this is not an actual book, this is the training, but premature babies notes, okay? I'm gonna do premature baby article notes. So it's very clear what it is, and then you can just keep a blanket file called research. All right, so something really simple, just a folder called research, save, and move on with your life, friends. Next is write in Scrivener. Going back to Scrivener tool, you can have anything you want on these cards. So if you wanted to have another, you know, a note about this source, you can put your notes right here. Okay. You can also use the research notes file. So here's a file. It's called research notes. It's kind of automated in the system. And you can keep, you know, source number A, B, you know, source A, B, if you're labeling tons of sources, and your notes on that source here. All right, great. So I hope this is interesting to you. It's only interesting if you really needed to know how to do research, because I'm giving you tons of information. And while I wish I could edit videos, I really don't know how to do that yet. So I can't make these little modules like I may want to, and I don't have time to re-record. So I hope you're having fun today and learning about all the things that you can do. Another wonderful way to do research, and again, there's some ideas here, but let me show you this. So you can always stop the video and play the rest when you need to. I'm going to show you how to work Word again, because it's so amazing what you can do, and you may not even be aware of it. So I'm going to click on New, and you can put all your documents in one place. So for example, and I can show you an example. Let me go to File, Open. What I mean by this is you can actually have one document that's all of your research notes, as well as the research sources. And this works really well when you have a boatload of research, or if it's just your preference. So I'm going to show you. Okay. My mouse is kind of slow today. So research, notes, and sources. So this chapter was particularly hard because there was so much research. Look at all that data, 20-something pages, 21 pages of notes. And you can see tons and tons of notes from various sources. But you also notice that there is a header. So look at this header. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to make these. So you see where it says sleep? And then all the data around this topic of sleep is in there. This is another way to organize your research, is by the topic, you know, or the source. So let's say you're studying like a war, or, you know, the French and Indian War or something. And first you looked at kind of why did it happen, and then you look at the time period and what was the cultural norms going on, and then you look at the winnings and after effects. So those are kind of headings or groupings of research that you can find for that particular topic. In this case, you know, it's sleep, it's hormones, it's water, etc. So there's different things I'm finding that are from multiple sources. So this is a great idea, and for lots of different data points that you may need. So how do you do this? Well, first thing you do is you use this heading tool. So I'm going to click on heading 1, and let's say the area again is Genesis of War. Okay, let's do Civil War. And inside of here, you list your notes. Notes from A source, notes from B source, notes from C source. Okay, and they're all right there. And then you have another topic. You have a kind of culture of Civil War times. All right, whole nother kind of topic, but same material. And you notes from D source and notes from E source. Okay. So as far as the data that you need, again, you're making headers. Why you're doing this? Because if I go to view, I can look at the navigation pane, and this navigation pane, look, makes it so easy to go from point to point to point. And so I didn't even know this existed until I went to a writing class from Lighthouse in Denver, which is an amazing writing school. It's kind of fun, and it looks at more craft. So you would look at, you know, what are those topics or headings that you need around your research, and then you organize it right inside of this Word document. Okay, very, very cool. From what I understand, you can't do this in other places. Like I don't see how you can do this in, you know, OneNote, for example, or in Google Docs. So Word definitely has its advantages. In Scrivener, you can do this, but not in the same way. You still have to, you know, break it out, et cetera, for pages. All right. Okay, so we looked at how and where to store notes. Again, index cards, we talked about Word as a one source file, or one source file for that one resource, or OneNote for that one resource and article. And we talked about the navigation menu in Word. So lots and lots of fun stuff here. Let's keep going. And we're looking at how do we organize our bibliography. Now, we did already make note of this, and this is the last piece of this training today. So you've made it to the end. Congratulations, and I hope you're still awake, because research, I'm sorry, it's just not as fun to talk about unless you're really, really, really interested in what I'm talking about. My next webinar, which will be later in the year, is going to be super fun. It's on motivation. So that is much more entertaining than this may be for you. But long story short, you have now great data and how to go about and research your project, don't you? So organizing notes is the last step here. So let me show you how to do this. And there's different ways to do it. So I'm going to start with just the basics in Word, because most of you are going to be working through Word when you get something done. So I'm going to my emotional fitness chapter. And let's say I want to make sure I cite this Gottfried, right? So I mentioned it earlier, but you may need a footnote. So I can insert a footnote or an endnote. So I'm going to click in endnote. I like endnotes better. And an endnote is going to pop up. So you see how it has this little I here, and it means one. You can actually change that, how you go about it in here. It just depends on what, how you want things to look. So the footnote is going to come at the very bottom. The endnote is going to come at the end of the paragraph. That's the difference. And what I like about endnotes is you can, when I go over how to organize your research for your book in the next segment, you'll see the difference, okay? So footnotes, I don't particularly love, but you can put them in here, and you would just insert the citation if you're using Word. So how easy is that? Or insert the bibliography point right there. And voila, you are done. You want to make sure that is, taken care of and looks good and all of that good stuff. But you have your note right there. I'm going to put another one in. So I'm clicking inside where the endnote is, and I'm just clicking this button up top here that says insert endnote where it's highlighted, and clicking it again, and now it's going to bring up point 2. All right, so you see that? And this is an endnote. Or I can do the same thing. So I'm going to insert my bibliography, insert my citation, insert my bibliography, and voila. Okay, the next thing I can do is insert, the footnote. And the footnote difference is if I put this in as a footnote, I'm going to insert footnote, it's going to have it right here at the bottom. And same thing, go to bibliography, insert, you'll have your, whatever your sources are. I only put the one source in, but there's several other sources that you can add. I can add sources too, anytime by clicking add, or a placeholder if needed for a source, okay? So this is how you would quote inside the document. Let me undo, because this is actually my final draft. So I need to undo all that I did. Because it's already edited. Can you believe it? I can. I can't wait till it's all done. But how do you do your end of book reference pages? Let me go to Amazon and show you some ideas on how to do that. Okay, so let me close this out and get ads all the time, right? So here's some ideas. So the first way you can do it is this. This is a simple way to do it. This is by the Circle Maker author, Mark Batterson. And he put it by chapter. So he just says notes. He puts it by chapter. He has the name of the chapter, and he has where there may be a quotation or some kind of research. So he pops in page 11 and adds in all the data there. So he does it very uniquely by putting the page that was cited, and he puts kind of some context in there. So that's kind of a cool idea. I love how he uses the scriptures, like he puts the first words of the scriptures in there, and again cites the page. That's pretty thorough and pretty neat. Another way you can do it is this. This is the book Obesity Code by Jason Fung, Dr. Jason Fung, and I love this method. He actually has the endnotes or footnotes that he copied and put inside of one place instead of inside of the chapter. So he put it in one area and he called it endnotes. and he has the number that corresponds to when the reference showed up inside of the document. So this is another fancy way to do it. I personally love this method. It just depends how much research you have and what your preference is. Okay, the next area, let me show you another option. And again, it just starts from one every chapter, so it makes it a lot easier to organize when you go to organize that. Okay, another idea, a way you can quote at the end of your book. This one is from a book called The Dumb Things Smart People Do with Their Money by Jill Schlesinger. And what you see here is she has, it's very simple. She just simply has the author's name, and she lists the author's first and last, which is not necessarily Chicago manual, which is what you want to follow. But she has how she does it, and she calls it notes, and it's more of a summary type of basis. Okay, this is probably a research tool I'm not quite familiar with, but you can see there what it is, interview when it was, very simplified way to do the notes and very smooth. This is my colleague's book. It's called Chocolate Peppers, Why Acting in Your Own Self-Interest is Good for You, Your Loved Ones, and Society and the World. So nonetheless, it's by the last name of the author and then where it's quoted. And notice there's no page reference. There's just an area of the chapter. And it has, you know, the reader would have to look it out. You know, he somehow says, you know, Altman said, blah, 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 blah. Or in the book, who goes first, blah, 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 blah. So the author would have to do a little thinking work to find out exactly where the source is. But this is a nice simplified way for most readers, okay? Okay, well, we have been an hour, and I just want to say thank you. Let me get my video here. And I really hope you enjoyed today's session, because it's just, you know, going about research is no easy feat, and you want to make sure you do it well. So I hope that you enjoyed this and you'll watch it again, but you should feel more empowered to what to do and how to organize your research, and hopefully take away the anxiety that I felt. Not that you can take away my anxiety, but take away some of the anxiety you may be feeling about the mountain of research that you may need to do to strengthen your book and help it go further and wider. So with that said, again, my name is Jay Harris, and I've enjoyed being with you. Thanks so much.